Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I think it's a very interesting session with investment funds and vehicles driven by athletes. For the next 25 minutes, we will drive you through who we are, who are our firms, what we do, how we invest. If you are also founders, then we will talk about the particularities of having athletes as an LPs or the funds driven by athletes. Also give you our insights about the sport tech market and also trends in investment in the next years. How do we see the market is evolving too? Just to introduce myself as well, my name is Juan Fuentes. I've been working in international development for the last 10 years in Asia Pacific, in the Middle East, now in Northern Europe, for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Spain, later for a British media company, in the last 7 years for La Liga, first in the Middle East and now in Northern Europe. But what brings me here, I am an investor, an angel investor. I've been investing 5 years. I have 7 portfolio companies in the sports, media, and entertainment world, and later on I will share my thesis as well. And I belong to FIBAN, which is the Finnish Business Angel Network, where we are 600 members investing more than 26 million euros only last year in more than 170 startups. This is more or less who I am. So now I'm going to leave the floor to Antonio.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antonio Cacarino, the founder and CEO of Apex. Exactly what you're saying, we invest in sports, media and entertainment, backed by some of the best athletes in the world. That's why we started our firm. We saw the opportunity to get athletes involved. We saw how strategic they could be as investors in sports, and that's why we started the business and what we've been doing for the last 3 years, and really focusing in finding the best opportunities across our space, which has been a very exciting last 3 years. You know, I guess everyone's seen what happens in sports and how many opportunities are out there, and we've been just proudly riding that wave, and I guess that's it.
Perfect. Ron?
Thanks, Juan. Hi, everyone. I basically here wear 2 hats. One is as the founder CEO of Sports Tech X, and the other is the investment director at Match Ventures. So essentially, if you want to know, for anybody who's not so familiar with sports tech, what exactly that includes and what are the trends and what's happening in that ecosystem, then Sports Tech X is a resource that I can guide you to. We talk about the market. We talk about which are the hottest startups, who are the most active investors. So we talk about these guys a lot. And then we fuel that deal flow that we find into the fund with Match Ventures, where we're an early stage fund, usually cutting a check from 200K to $1 million, average ticket size of about 500K or so. Yep.
Good. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me today. So my name is Ferran Prieto. I manage Pau Gasol's family office, which we named Gasol 16 Ventures. We've been investing since 2020, sports, health, and wellness. We've invested in Series A, Series B, a little later stage companies. We've made 17 investments to date, actually 18, but one of them is a follow-on investment. And we've invested, from early stage startups, like usually Series A or later, to like investing at the WNBA, at the league level, a company called Overtime, which is revolutionizing basketball in the US. And we're now looking at things across, leagues and franchises and stuff like that. And we'll talk about trends in sports, but really excited about some of the things that we're seeing and what's happening in sports investment in general.
Hello, everybody. As a former basketball player, I'm trying to share my experience with young athletes, entrepreneurs, and corporations through events, workshops, and of course, investments in startups. I've been angel investing for about 12 years. I have 17 active startups in my portfolio, and I have moved into sports tech in 2018, and last year we founded Alima Sports VC to build a bridge between Turkish sports industry and startup ecosystem and global sports industry to build bridges, connect startups with different markets.
Thank you, Sinan. So I think now that we already know the speakers and organizations, and I think it's important to know and to understand also from maybe the startup community in what stage we are, if we are currently investing or doing follows on, in what stage is our fund, and as well our thesis. And I'm going to start by myself. As I shared before, I have 7 investments in my portfolio companies. It's cross-border, so I have investments all around Europe. I usually invest in sports, media, and health, B2C or B2B2C component as a business model. And I chose companies that matches my DNA in the way that I have been working in international development. I invest in companies that has validation locally, and they are thinking of expanding, and that are in the industry that I work with. And since I also work as a corporate in La Liga, I don't usually invest in companies that can be a provider or a client of my organization, but open to the others and anywhere in the world, because my thesis is very narrow. So I go for cross-border. I have investments in the US, in Sweden, in Finland, and looking forward to deliver some more tickets. So happy to get to know you as well, if there is any founder. And this is more or less who am I, my investment thesis. So Antonio, if you would like to share more, where is Apex nowadays?
Yeah, so we have, I would say, two verticals. One is the VC side, which was the first strategy we really had. We invest from a 50 million euro fund. I would say the bread and butter of the fund is late seed, early Series A globally, but we end up doing a bit more US, Europe. Sports, media, and entertainment. I mean, it's of course it's broad, the term, but to be honest, there's few things we won't look at. Anything enhancing nutrition, performance, sleep, data analytics, B2B, B2C. I mean, there's pretty, I think the early stage market is growing, but it's still young and niche, so you need to broaden it. So I would say we look at pretty much everything in the space. And then the second vertical within Apex is a growth and private equity division. We don't invest from a fund. It's a deal-by-deal approach, but we've been focusing a lot in there over the last 18 months. We've invested in Alpine Formula One team, Venezia Football Club, which sort of is, I would say, first official announcement of that. We're coming in. We're going to announce it very soon, and we just got promoted to the first division, which was great. We invested in golf, in Tomorrow Sports, a league created by Tiger and Rory, and the PGA, and we also have a minority stake in one of the teams. So there is, we love teams, we love leagues, media commercial rights, underwriting IP where we see it, and yeah, deal by deal, and hopefully soon we'll look at starting our own fund there too.
Okay, Ron.
Yeah, a little origin story for Match Ventures. So under this branding, it's a new fund, but its founders or the fund partners from an existing sports tech fund, which is Indigo Sports Tech, one of the older players in the market, been around since 2019, been actively investing since then, and Mindspring Capital, which has also been around for a few years. And they came together with Sports Tech X to launch the new fund, Match Ventures, which, we're basically active now. We just started deploying our first few deals. With Match Ventures, similar to Antonio and Apex, we don't have the big PE arm. That's still a way away. But we do the first part, which is late seed to pre-Series A investment tickets, but focus purely on sports technology. So all the typical stuff, sports, fitness, maybe a bit of gaming, betting, media entertainment, all that kind of stuff. In terms of geographical focus, traditionally it's been only Europe. But now with a new avatar, with the new partners, expanding our research or our eye to a bit more into the US, and also looking eastward. I'm a bit biased to India, and I see the growing sports tech story in those markets, in the Asian markets. So we put our eye on all of those areas as well. In terms of our portfolio existing, we've done quite a few deals, a couple of names I can give you on the wearable side. So companies like PlayerMaker, which is well known in the football wearable space, or Oliver, which is more locally within Spain or based out of Barcelona. Companies like Minutely or Horizon on like either software or fan data. So we've got a pretty active portfolio that we've been investing in for the last few years, and now we're looking to grow that with the new avatar of the fund.
All right. So in our case, so sports health and wellness in general. Health and wellness, we basically understand it as preventative health. So the Gazelle Foundation, which is the foundation that Pau and Mark started to fight childhood obesity, has 4 main verticals, which are nutrition, physical activity, emotional well-being, and sleep. So we use the same verticals to invest in sports health and in health and wellness mostly. In sports, we're looking at sports techs as well, but we want to look at things where Pau, being an investor, adds a lot of value to the company. So if we're just a financial investor, another check, we're not interested. We either want to get special access because of who we are, or we sometimes negotiate additional, sweat equity or equity for service just because of the connections that we have, and we can do a deal for Pau to be an ambassador or something like this. We also have like a little catch-all category to invest in companies in Spain that have the potential to be global leaders in their category, even if they're not sports health and wellness. And the only reason why we do that is because When Pau left for the NBA, he was told that he was crazy, that he was going to fail, that he should just stay home. So we have that sensitivity, for entrepreneurs that have these big dreams. They want to chase something incredible, and they have too many people telling them that they're crazy, that they're going to fail. So we want to be the ones kind of supporting them and helping them achieve those dreams. And in terms of geography, mostly Europe and the US, those are the markets that we know the best. But we actually invested in a company called Draftea, which is daily fantasy sports, mostly in Mexico and Latin America.
Perfect. Sinan, if you want to share with
Our main thesis focuses on building the bridge, as I mentioned before. And of course, that involves helping Turkish startups grow in a global scale, but at the same time, creating strategic relationships between global startups to expand in Turkey and surrounding areas. We are looking mostly for pre-seed startups, but at the same time, we do plan to co-invest, so we're looking for strategic opportunities as well.
Perfect. So now I would like to go deeper into the fact that we're having here vehicles which are very, very interesting because they are driven by athletes. I don't think we need to introduce Gasol. Here we have Gasol 16 Ventures. We're having Match Ventures as well, who's also partners. Some of them are founders of the Champions League as we know it. Correct me, Ron, if I am wrong. Apex with LPs, of the caliber of, Varane, Marcelo, and of course a seasoned basketball player as well, who is into now the startup and investment world for many years. I think you were before as well an angel,
yes,
if I am correct. So what's the added value, and this is a question for all of you, of having these athletes within your funds or these managers, in your case, Ron, maybe that are very, very much experienced in the sports industry, as an added value for the fund itself, but also for the startups that you are investing? If you want, Antonio, to start with the...
Yeah, starting with the added value for us as a firm, I think it's really pretty much on a diligence and industry perspective. They understand the industry like few others, right? They're born into sports and they spend 20, 30 years, even if they haven't ever looked at an investment directly and understand the financial metrics of something. They can look at the industry and they can look at a company and understand if the problem they're trying to solve exists, if the solution is the right one, but also if this is the right time, because sometimes there's a problem, there's a solution, but it's too early, right? And they have the sensibility to tell us that. So I guess on a diligence perspective, they're very, very, very helpful for us, and they love it. They love the fact that we're picking their brains more than their wallets and their commercial value, because they know they have it, of course. So I guess that's the main added value that we see as Apex, of course. And then once we invest, and when they particularly invest in a company with us or an LP in our fund and then get involved, they can open so many doors, right? Business development, at the end of the day, when you're coming in early stage in a company, it's about how can you integrate your network into those companies. These guys have a unique network, and not just how strong that network is, how strong their power of unlocking it. If I know one person, or Carlos Sainz knows the same person, and we call them asking a favor, I think Carlos has a higher chance of people doing the favor to him, right? And that's just the nature of who they are, and when they use it, they can be super helpful to these companies. So I'd say the business development side is one of the main reasons that they can help. Again, they can do other things, but to highlight the two, I would say it's this.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how the LPs are bringing so much value generation to the fund. Ron, in your case, maybe more from the manager side, because in your fund there are a lot of executives that has a lot of experience in the sports industry.
Yeah, for sure. Craig Thompson, you already mentioned, he's one of the, let's say, founders of the Champions League property. They came up with it with team marketing and stuff, but in his first avatar, let's say first innings, Craig was a professional volleyball player and beach volleyball. He represented the US at the Olympics as well, I believe. Or even Anton, who's also a partner at the fund. He's also been to the Olympics, but as a coach. He was a medal-winning coach for the American volleyball team. So we have a lot of experience, and everybody's kind of close to sports, and usually people who are working in the sports tech side of investment is because they love it and they're very close to sport themselves. And I think these synergies are obvious, as Antonio went to, like the kind of value that an athlete brings. I think the first is the mindset. Mm-hmm. The way an athlete thinks is kind of like how a founder has to think. The way they have their dedication to what they have to deliver, their dedication to their cause, their dedication to in an athlete's case, either their own body or their own goals or their team, depending on their sport. And it's the same for a founder, either to their client, to their investor, or to themselves, to what they want to deliver. So I think that mindset is very obvious. And then you have all the extras, all the marketing power, the reach that an athlete brings, all of that good stuff. So I think and especially now in this ecosystem where athletes are earning much more I mean, you didn't have athlete angel investors 20 years ago because they just weren't earning as much. Today that the shift is significant. I mean, you might have a Luka Doncic who might, when the NBA contract comes up for renewal with the CBA, he's going to be making something like $80-90 million a year. That's a lot of capital available. Now, of course, there are different types of athletes, but that kind of story was not being told 5 or 10 years ago, even certainly. So now, as athletes have increased access to capital, they certainly have the power to deploy, and all the synergies they bring to a cap table. Sometimes for sweat equity, which is completely deserved, I believe as well. Like they bring so much. It's not just the financial capital, but also everything else. Like I said, the mindset, their mentality. I think that's super, super valuable to any founder. Not just in sports, to any industry, but with sports, the synergy is even more obvious.
Interesting. What about you, Frank? How a company like Overtime can benefit from the fact that Gasol 16 Ventures is investing there?
So I mean, Overtime, basically, we got involved when they were creating Overtime Elite, and they're basically creating a new path for athletes to get to the NBA. So they have Carmelo Anthony and Pau sitting on the board of Overtime Elite. That's a very obvious one, right? Like they've been in the process. Carmelo actually came from the college, so he went through college to the NBA. And then Pau came from Europe to the NBA. So for them to have both points of view on the board and helping those kids actually reach their dreams, that makes a lot of sense. From a deal flow perspective, for example, like there are companies that want Pau specifically because of what he represents and the value he can bring. There are deals that are close to everybody else, but they're open for us, right? So we have this kind of privilege allocation, if you will, to get into deals that nobody else can get into. Draftea was an example. Draftea was a company that was started by this Stanford guy who was approached Sequoia and 2 other funds. Nobody could come in, but Kevin Durant, us, and a couple other guys were able to come in because the company was that promising, and they just wanted us because they were very strategic about the market. So there's a lot of value like that. That's why we're also very specific about investing in companies where the value is obvious to us, but also to the company. If both sides see it, there's a deal there for sure.
Perfect, interesting. What about you, Sinan? How a startup can benefit from the fact that yourself as an athlete, as a seasoned athlete, is investing like as an angel or now as a VC? How do you see these synergies and value generation of you being an athlete into the startup?
Yeah, I try to view it as a basketball game itself. Early on in my career, when I started getting exposure and being more impactful around me, I invested in a company, lost the money there, and I realized there's so much to learn. And when we look at investment in startups as a financial tool, there needs to be more to the story than investing in real estate or investing in the markets. And I got really excited about that and started getting involved more with the startups that I want to create impact with, similar to what Gasols are doing right now and everybody else. And the more I learn, the more I realize there needs to be a story to be told. In Turkey, we don't have much angel investors from the sporting community. 1, the funding capabilities are not there. 2, the stories of successes and failures are not well told so far, even though I try my best to be a part of that. And hopefully I can be an example with good exit strategies and good investment opportunities to create some kind of investment tool for these up-and-coming athletes who are going to earn more than probably I did.
Perfect, and very interesting. Now I would like to discuss investments in sports tech, because we are all based in different regions. I am in the northern countries. I am based in Copenhagen. Antonio is Lisbon, also UK. Ron in Germany. So Ferran US, even though you don't only invest in sports. Sinan in Turkey, if I am...
Turkey and Netherlands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would like also to share our thoughts. How do we see our sport tech markets, or maybe Ferran, in your case, what brings you the attention of the sports industry to invest? And in my case, in Northern Europe, what I see is the ecosystems are very consolidated. They are mapped. There is also public support to the ecosystems. In Denmark, for instance, the Danish Olympic Committee has an sport tech department, which is funded by the Ministry of Industry of Denmark. In Finland, there are cities who are the sport tech hubs themselves, so the cities are positioning themselves as sports tech hubs. And there is a lot of consolidation in every of these ecosystems. There are around 150 startups. And since the markets are small, they are all born already thinking international, which I think is a good competitive advantage for the startups in this region. But maybe you can also share, maybe from your geographies, what do you see in terms of sport tech, deal flow, and so on?
Well, I think, again, the last 5 years have been brutal in a good way for sports. The amount of professionalization that has come into the sector, the amount of professional and institutional investors trying to acquire teams, leagues. And of course, the first thing that they're going to do is, how do we, now I bought this amazing football club with a huge fan base, with a very cool brand, blah, 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 blah. But it's still very old school. How can I make this operation financially sustainable? How can I market it better? So of course, that's where the sports tech industry starts to be born and trying to serve these new needs. And again, particularly in Europe, looking at US and looking what is done very well there and how can we replicate it here. Generally, that's a trend that we try to see, which is what are the right companies that will serve these teams, these leagues, these assets, and being run efficiently. One particular, I wouldn't call it a trend. One particular need is definitely trying to understand, the new fan, right, and read the fans and have, through data analytics and a lot of companies come to us that try to solve this problem. How can Real Madrid really understand who their fans are, right? Because it's a global business, but where are they? What do they want to consume? How do they want to consume sports now? It's changing. New sport formats, right? The traditional way that we've and maybe my parents and my grandparents consume sports has drastically changed to maybe what the new generation is, but nobody really knows what that is. So definitely trying to understand that and invest in the right companies that will help you reach there is something that we know is a massive opportunity, but again, also very challenging because there's so many different options right there, out there, and nobody really knows where it's going, but definitely understanding that is something which is fundamental.
Perfect. Ron, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll answer this question actually more with my Sports Tech X hat than with the fund hat, though the perspective is very much shared. I think one of the things that we talk about increasingly is that the reason that sports tech is gaining prominence on the global stage is because sports is gaining prominence on the global stage, and I don't think there's enough attention paid to that. And we talk about 3 key trends: is the amount of venture capital that is coming into sports today from private VC or private money, private equity, especially from the US, but also in the rest of the world. This again was not happening 5 years ago. The kind of valuations that you see in sports entities, sports franchises, the kind of transactions that you see, whether it's a Mark Cuban selling the Mavs for $3 billion or Michael Jordan selling for $3 billion, or the various football clubs, the kind of multiples that you're seeing, you were not seeing 5 years ago. So, and if these are the entry points for private capital, as we know, that's because they expect that appreciation to go much further in the next 5 to 10 years. So in general, they're betting big on sports because they see that upside, number one. Number two, yeah, we can always talk about the Middle East and which country is coming up, but I think we've reached the big daddy now with Saudi and the amount there is spending to disrupt sports, whether it's golf, whether it's tennis, whether it's boxing, and now also football and other sports. So the amount of money that they're putting into sports seems like it'll continue for some time. And the third one that we look at is big tech. Apple with MLS, Amazon, Google with YouTube, all of these were not investing in live sports broadcasting the way they are now. This was not happening 3 to 5 years ago. Apple is looking to MLS for a 10-year partnership because they want to sell Apple products everywhere in the world. Amazon is doing the same with Prime. They have an NFL ticket, they have a Premier League ticket, they have Champions League in Germany, for example, right? So all of this is happening because they want to upsell their products, whether it's Google or anything. So big tech is investing big in sports. When we have this kind of capital coming in from these big new sources into the sports and sports tech industry, then of course the industry becomes of interest. There are specific trends I can talk about, but also to hear from them. From a German perspective, yeah, again, the market is there. You see a lot of the sports teams, whether it's the DFL, Bayern Munich, Dortmund, etc., all of them have some sort of sports innovation, some sort of initiative that they're investing in. because they are tracking what's next. Fan data is a big problem, fan engagement, digital transformation, all these kind of terms. All of this is important now because they have big money coming in behind them, so they have to operate efficiently to deliver on what they have, their sporting properties to their fans.
Interesting. Ferran, what about you? You invest in more things, not only in sports, but what brings your attention from maybe the sports industry in the US, for instance, where you are based?
So all the things that they mentioned, I would also add, for example, like a bunch of athletes now getting into sports, investing in sports, and they realize they have a brand, they have capital, and they want to get in the game. They're being smart about it. I think that's really important. The other thing that's really interesting to us is the growth of women's sports. Women's sports has been historically this thing that you need to support, like to be a good citizen, but that's no longer the case. It's a business. The audiences are growing, like they're shattering attendance records all the time. We have seen it firsthand in the WNBA as investors in the league, and we see what's happening in terms of growth. You saw, for example, the phenomenon Caitlin Clark in the NCAA. Like the final had I think the semifinal had 14.7 million viewers, which was more than any NBA game and then any college football game, which in the US is like a religion, other than the Michigan Ohio State game. The final was 18.4 million. I don't think many sports events in the US had more audience than that, maybe the Super Bowl and something like that. So women's sports is a reality. We're looking at the WNBA as a team level and WSL and across other leagues. So I think that's a reality that people are paying more attention to because it's an amazing business and the valuations are not as insane as the MLS, for example. The MLS, we're not going to touch it because I think they've lost their mind a little bit.
Sinan, if you want to share also your thoughts on this.
I think it's very important to examine what's going on globally. But if I want to portray what's happening in Turkey, sports tech-wise, I think it's first of all scattered into personal relationships, and it's not really governed well in terms of hubs and let's say connected environments. And at the same time, the economy and the exchange rate creates a lot of friction between startups in Turkey and how they grow outside of Turkey. And hopefully, building connections like this and building some kind of relationship with outside tools, we're going to change that with certain digital transformation as well.
Perfect, very interesting. There was more content, more questions, but I think we're running out of time. Thank you very much, everyone. As you know, we are on LinkedIn. If you are startups, you can approach our organizations ourselves. And thank you very much for joining us today. I hope we add some value for you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.